So there we go. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this exciting webinar session where we are going to explore today some important questions and insights when it comes to your technology investments. The decisions we make today has some far-reaching consequences. And my name is Ken Loubser. I'm the executive for Microsoft at Kajima. Joining me today is Ax Zenius, a highly experienced solutions architect, and then Vanessa Munich Wallace. She's channel lead for Microsoft Cloud Solution Partner Program at our partner Westcon Comstar. CSP is the commercial model through which organizations purchase and manage Microsoft Cloud services such as Microsoft 365. So she's really well positioned to provide insight into Microsoft's evolving licensing and commercial landscape. So let me start with the central challenge. Most organizations are not wasting money because they are intentionally buying the wrong technology. The waste mostly comes from technology estates becoming overly complex, duplicated, under-adopted, and difficult to measure. So our goal today is not to tell you to spend less on technology. The goal is to help leaders, managers, executives to spend smarter and extract more value from the platforms that you already own. This slide captures the reality for many CFOs and businesses. Technology spend is increasing, but value is lagging. And that's the uncomfortable question, is whether business value is being realized at the same pace of our technology investments. So technology optimization should not be positioned as a budget cutting exercise. That for me is very important. It should be considered and I would say positioned as a financial confidence that you have. Can we prove that the technology that we fund is delivering real impact business outcomes that we expect as an organization? So key. Leading research shows a number of key aspects that we need to consider. The first one is that Gartner research reveals a number of topics that we should consider. The first one is the underutilization of SaaS investments. And that's a big challenge because organizations only use a fraction of what you've been licensed for. So value leakage is driven by adoption, not the spend. A very important research finding. The second one is that tool sprawl is causing some significant cost drivers for many organizations. And this is where the cost really comes in. We're looking at integration, operational costs to maintain and support it, duplication of applications and technologies. So it's a challenge. And ultimately, when we think about cost optimization, it is not a once-off procurement exercise. It's a continuous governance principle that we need to adhere to. And then number fourth is the significant impact of AI. But we have to realize that the AI value depends on data and platform readiness. Doesn't help rushing into AI without proper data governance, platform integration, and security maturity in place. And we've seen it through our previous webinars that we've hosted. So the big takeaway for me here is AI does not fix fragmentation. It amplifies the quality of the environment it is placed into. So we all have a responsibility when it comes to the adoption of AI. This is a serious concern. You may be paying for more than what you use, and the research shows it. The reality and frightening reality is that up to 70% of licenses and capabilities that companies own may not be used at all. So there's a value leakage that's taking place. You license for collaboration, you've got security compliance, endpoint management, automation, and analytics, but you're only using email, bit of documents and Teams. So the organization is paying for capability without realizing the value of that capability. Gartner as a unique benchmark. And that suggests that organizations are spending approximately $1,370 per employee per year. That's SaaS spend. So it's not just Microsoft, general SaaS. And some other studies indicate that it could even be much higher. So we're investing into technology, but are we getting the real value? And then on the right-hand side, we can see that 25% of provisioned SaaS licenses are unused. A big challenge. Again, the challenge is not what you're buying, wrong technology, but it's, are we actively using what we've paid for? And then a frightening statistic at the bottom left, very concerning insight, is Gartner's view that organizations without centralized SaaS visibility and lifecycle management are at risk of overspending, because different departments procure, tools independently, creating duplication, overlap, and increased complexity within our organizations. So quite a big factor when we consider the costs that we are bearing. Now, look at the contrast. If you look at the Microsoft 365 Copilot, which was the total economic impact study from Forrester, where it basically shows that the focus is not here on overspending, but it's on what return on investment do we get by implementing the technology. And what was interesting here is that the value was driven by productivity gains, time savings, better utilization of employee capacity. But it means we have to measure. If we're not measuring, we can't manage. And so technology does not automatically create value. Critically important for us to understand that. Now, let's think about value realization in the context of technology. We would like to transform organizations, and those technology investments must enable measurable business outcomes. On the left, we own a lot. Microsoft 365, Copilot, Teams, we can see all the Microsoft Defenders for security, Purview for data governance, Azure, Entra, quite a lot of technology spend and investment. On the right-hand side, we're looking for business outcomes. Now, how do we realize the value? Although we spend on technology, it's all about what are we enabling from the platforms, from the licenses that we have, to the adoption of technology and solutions by our employees, optimizing the platforms that we have. It's not a once-off. Once you buy it, the platform, it doesn't automatically realize value for you. You have to implement it. You have to activate it and then continuously optimize to address new capabilities that's forthcoming from platforms, as well as different business requirements that may be forthcoming. So it's a continuous process for searching for business value. And the outcomes are focused on productivity, cost optimization, enhanced security, governance, both AI, data, automation, business processes that we automate, AI readiness, and our ability for our businesses to quickly move when the market changes. How quickly can we adapt? There's potential in technology, but if we're not intentional, we will not see the business outcomes. So before we go further, let's quickly pause here and allow you to reflect on your own organization. So let me ask, and maybe Justin, you can put up a poll for us. How would you describe your current return on technology investments in your organization today? So it's not a technical question; it's about your business confidence, question. Can you confidently show that investments made in technology are improving productivity, reducing risk, lowering complexity, enabling better decisions for your organization? So just have a look at the options there. Technology as a cost center, then technology adoption challenges. Number 2, all the way 3. 4 is optimizing technology investments. We actively measure utilization and rationalize overlapping of technologies. And then number 5 is where you are completely maximizing business value and AI readiness. So let's just give it a couple of seconds for everybody to to respond. Interesting to see what the poll brings back. So 33% so far. Technology is mainly as a cost center, which I think is very relevant and aligned to what we see in our customers. 17% there's technology adoption, and then a spread. You are managing technology complexity at about 25%. So the majority, as it stands, it looks like a good spread, probably be number 1, 2, and 3. Optimizing technology investments and maximizing business value is still at a very, very low score when we look at it. So the big question is, where are we losing our money? What are the areas that's causing us to waste? And at Kajima, we've got the technology waste framework, which is a really good tool. And let's ask the question, how would you prove today that your technology investments are delivering the best possible return for your organization? As you've been asked by executives, are you able to prove the return on investment? So not how much you're spending on technology or how many licenses you own, but how much business value are you actually receiving from your investment in technology? Because when we look at organizations across the board, we often find that technology waste is not sitting in one invoice only. It's sitting in the gap between what has been purchased and then what has actually been activated, adopted, and operationalized in the business. So let's look at this framework. License waste is the most visible form of waste. We can see it in unused Microsoft licenses, maybe incorrect license allocation within your organization, and you're paying for capabilities that you've not enabled. And we see this a lot. Tool sprawl is probably where waste becomes much harder to see, but it is still very relevant. So overlapping security tools that we have. Many organizations own Microsoft Defender, Sentinel, Entra, Purview, Power Platform, for instance, and yet you still maintain a separate security, identity, compliance, and reporting tool sets. So the cost is not just licensing, it's multiple vendors, multiple support contracts, multiple skill sets to support, and increased operational complexity. It is a big challenge that we need to consider and think about how can we rationalize our tool sets. The third one is operational, or let's look at cloud waste first. I think that is an important one as well. So cloud waste for me is maybe not really waste. I don't think that's a cloud problem. It's really a governance problem when it comes to cloud. So we have oversized environments, unused Azure resources, and then lack of governance. And in the previous session, when we were talking cloud, we were talking about FinOps and how to really be proactive in managing your cloud spend proactively. Operational complexity, where we have disconnected systems, high support overhead, and manual processes is another component of this waste framework. So taking all of these into account is important because, it's not 4 separate issues. They all lead to the same outcome, which is technology value leakage. The organization is spending money, but complexity, like we can see in the center, fragmentation and poor adoption are preventing you from getting the best possible return on your investment and getting to that measurable business value. The organizations in 2026 are not necessarily buying more technology. We have to focus on rationalizing our platforms, eliminating overlap, improving the adoption, make sure that we activate the capabilities that's readily available and paid for, and then measure those outcomes rather than just technology ownership. The question is no longer what are we spending on technology, is can we prove every major technology investment is delivering value, what it was originally intended for. So critically important. This is another exciting topic, and I'm going to introduce Vanessa Munich-Wallace, that will take us through the navigating Microsoft's licensing, modernization, and AI commercial models. It could be quite complex, but I believe this is going to bring us some really good insights. So Vanessa, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ken, and welcome everybody. Thank you for having me. It's a great privilege to presenting to you today via Gajima. So look, licensing isn't exactly very sexy and it's not very exciting, right? But it is a necessary evil to actually attain the technology that you so desperately need within your environments. So from, looking at licensing modernization, AI and cloud solutions to strategic alignments, the audience that we generally would pitch this to goes across from executives all the way through to procurement, through to finance and any IT stakeholders. So it highlights important areas, right, that you need to consider. And the key message is that Microsoft licensing is no longer a back office procurement topic. It has become a strategic planning topic. Licensing decisions must align to workforce plans, cloud strategy, AI adoption, security maturity, and renewal timing. Renewal is incredibly important. So with that said, there are 4 changes executives should pay attention to. Firstly, Microsoft 365 pricing updates have taken effect on the 1st of July, a couple of days ago, which means that what will happen now is when you do renewals, you will only pay the new price upon renewal. So that the pricing is not going to take effect immediately as of the 1st of July. It will run until your potential renewal date. And secondly, the new 3-year CSP subscription options allow for longer-term agreements for M365 E3 and E5, as well as Teams Enterprise. This creates an opportunity for you to price protect and also have budget predictability, but only where the organization has confidence in its workforce and platform strategy. And thirdly, standalone Copilot subscriptions are excluded from the pricing changes, referenced on the slide, creating a separate AI investment conversation. And fourthly, enterprises should review agreements and AI adoption plans together. Licensing and AI strategies can no longer be separated. So some of the choices that you have available to you, and you've got the monthly subscriptions. So that is very much flexibility versus predictability. Your monthly subscriptions are generally much higher from a long-term cost perspective. Your second option is your annual commitment. So you provide predictability, and it often provides better financial value as well. 3-year subscriptions provide extended price protection and budget certainty, but they all require greater confidence, and the organization's direction has to be in play with the 3-year subscription model. The decision should not be driven only by price. It should be driven by workforce stability, growth forecasts, procurement requirements, and cash flow preferences as well. So now this slide should land strongly with finance leaders. Annual and multi-year commitments are not only discounted subscriptions, they produce and reproduce procurement effort. They reduce renewal complexity, they improve forecasting, and create room for more structured technology planning. 3-year CSP value becomes meaningful when the organization has a clear strategy. If the business knows it will remain or retain a stable Microsoft footprint and continue cloud or AI adoption, the predictability can support longer-term planning. If the organization is still uncertain, flexibility may be more of an important decision than price protection. So the return on technology investment discussion. This slide is where we shift from cost to return. Licensing decisions need to be evaluated beyond subscription costs. A license that appears more expensive may actually reduce operational overhead. Procurement cycles, audit complexity, as well as risk exposure or third-party tool spend. Predictable costs also allow organizations to reinvest into higher value initiatives like security, collaboration, automation, as well as AI. That is why ROI should include both direct savings and business enablement. So, Copilots. Copilot is not simply another application. It changes how users interact with work. It integrates AI into your Word, your Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and Teams to accelerate content creation, analysis, and decision-making. However, the value of Copilot depends on adoption, governance, readiness, and workload selection. If Copilot is licensed, but users are not trained, data is purely governed, or use cases are not aligned to business priorities, then Copilot becomes another example of a technology investment without full value realization. So the difference between Copilot Chat, Copilot M365, and CoWork. So essentially, the distinction is important for you to understand that not all AI experiences create the same commercial or operational model. Copilot Chat provides conversational AI, exactly like it is in its name, chat. And it is for information retrieval and productivity assistance. M365, Microsoft M365 Copilot, integrates with organizational data, productivity apps, and this provides more contextual business-focused AI experiences. Now, CoWork takes that to a completely new level. It moves further into multi-step work scenarios across data sources, tools, and workflows. That means that the governance model becomes more important because AI is no longer only assisting individuals, it's helping coordinate work. So our key takeaway here is that as AI moves from a chat to a work execution, governance moves from optional to essential. So it's governance plus licensing plus user readiness plus workload prioritization. Sorry, guys. Right, so how is CoWork enabled? This slide highlights 4 practical requirements, right? So CoWork starts with licensing. So you have to have your Copilot licensing sorted as a prerequisite for access. Then the commercial governance becomes important. Billing policies, cost management, access control, usage monitoring, spending limits, ownership structures, budget reviews, and reporting come to the fore. The executive point is that AI at scale cannot be introduced without financial governance. AI consumption must be visible, controlled, and aligned to business objectives. Super important. CoWork introduces a consumption-based pricing model on top of your Microsoft 365 Copilot licensing using a credit system. So it's starting to work a little bit like Azure from a pay-as-you-go perspective and consumption model. This creates flexibility, but it also introduces new risk. Uncontrolled AI consumption, organizations start small and scale usage based on demand. But they must establish spending thresholds, reporting, and ownership from the beginning. So the baseline here is AI value must scale with governance. Otherwise, AI scales costs more than originally planned, and it will obviously not scale as fast as your business value. So your ownership structures, your budget monitoring, and reporting is super, super important when it comes to CoWork. So from a pricing perspective, again, it is very much consumption-based. So the recommendations are simple, but strategically important. Licensing must and should match organizational size, complexity, and business priorities. For small and medium organizations, M365 Business Premium and Copilot can provide a strong balance of security, productivity, as well as AI. For mid-market organizations, you start looking at the Microsoft 365 E3 license together with Copilot, and that may provide a practical foundation for enterprises. For larger companies and corporates, E5 and advanced AI investments should be evaluated where growth, governance, security, and compliance requirements justify the additional capability. So before renewal, organizations should review pricing, forecast user growth, assess AI readiness, and have a look at your entire organization as a whole. Renewal should not be an administrative event. It should be a strategic review point. Governance is essential. Set spending thresholds, reporting, and business ownership. So from a recommendation perspective, this is now translating the discussion into action. Firstly, conduct a licensing and AI readiness assessment. Secondly, review subscription strategies, security posture, and collaboration maturity. Thirdly, define measurable outcomes such as productivity, cost optimization, and innovation. Fourthly, work with a partner like a Gajima, to validate licensing, align subscriptions, and develop adoption strategies. The key point is that optimization is not achieved by looking at only prices. It requires an integrated view of licensing, usage, security, AI readiness, and business value. So please speak to us, scan the QR code, and the Gajima team together with our team will assist you with a structured licensing assessment. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Vanessa. Yeah, so you're welcome to scan that barcode where we can do a proper Microsoft licensing value audit for you. We will set up a session afterwards. You can just complete the form and submit. So talking about licensing, we can now see that Microsoft licensing has changed, and it's moved from licensing decisions to business capability decisions. And the evolution is quite strong. We can see that of yesterday, we were looking at software licenses, productivity tool sets and technology ownership. Today, it's about business platforms that enable business outcomes, very important. How do we transform our organizations? How do we actively measure and drive value realization and, business capability? What can it allow us to do? And Microsoft has got three licenses that evolve. The first one is the E3, which is focused on the digital workplace. So for collaboration, productivity, hybrid work, as well as device management. And we see that actually as one of the areas where companies are not taking full advantage. E5 is advanced security and governance platform. So very strong advanced cybersecurity, compliance, data protection, insider risk management, zero trust. And then E7, which is not actually just a license, it's an operating platform that helps us to govern AI, through agent lifecycle management, agent security, AI at scale, and how do we operationalize AI within the organization? So three distinct licenses with very specific business capabilities. Again, so E3, digital workplace, employee productivity, collaboration, hybrid work, device management. E5 scales with exceptionally strong security modernization, compliance and governance with the likes of Purview, data protection that is kicking in. We've got Copilot, which is the AI productivity platform that is available. And then E7, which is the AI operating model, like we've said, with AI governance and AI at scale that's implemented within your organization. Now, very importantly, let's understand this a little bit better. There's an example, an organization of 5,000 employees. Let's say we've got 4,000 employees on E3, which is focused on the digital workplace environment. Then we've got 500 employees licensed for E5, which is the advanced security and governance. And we've got 50 users for E7, for AI operating model. What we find is a bit of confusion. Executives believe that we own E5 licenses, so the advanced security. So we have advanced security in our organization. And that's not entirely true. It's only true for the people that have been licensed for E5 security. Very important. So again, E3 population, they've got strong security, productivity, collaboration, and foundational controls that's available. E5, advanced security, Purview capabilities, insider risk audit, and e-discovery that is available only for the people that are licensed for those capabilities. And then the E7 population, is really about, let's call it our AI governance committee, the people in our organization that will develop agents, for instance, that's responsible for the AI operating model. They will utilize the E7 license. So not everybody in the organization needs to have an E7 license per se. So the recommended operating model, we've got the workforce, general employees, operational staff, most knowledge workers, that's the E3. There's other licenses that's available, like the front workers, that may be different. We can have a discussion separately to that, but for mine, that is our first focus area. Risk and governance, where compliance and security is critically important. So our executives, maybe finance, HR, legal, we want to make sure that they are really well protected. So focus, there's risk reduction, data governance, compliance and privacy, security operations, and then advanced threat protection, especially for those executives. The AI Center of Excellence, where the CIO office is and leadership, maybe enterprise architects, AI governance teams that's there. Like we've said, we've got developers that develop, on Copilot Studio, and then AI Transformation Office. They would really benefit from the E7 license specifically. This all brings business outcomes, and each of the licenses must align to very specific business outcomes. Stronger security posture, improved compliance and risk reductions, high productivity, automation, better decisions, faster decisions, I would say, and insights, AI readiness, the innovation that it brings and opportunities it brings for our organization. Then ultimately, we want to see reduced cost, complexity with much higher value that is available to organizations. This is a very important element for driving AI adoption and governance within the organization. And you can refer back to our previous webinars. Welcome to go and watch them on the Kajima website, where we've spoken about AI and security and how all of these components fit well together. I will now ask Ax to talk a little bit more about fragmentation and underutilization of the tools that we have within our organization. Ax?
Thanks, Ken, and welcome everybody. Thanks for your time. So one of the primary concerns that we see and the problems that a lot of our customers come to us is, well, we know that M365 is a collaboration platform, and every single business is using Outlook and Teams and OneDrive and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of confusion when it comes to the platform evolving. And M365 today is not the M365 that was around last year. For every single one of the pillars, the holistic view of M365 pillars changes. And this can get incredibly frustrating and incredibly confusing, because you often have features inside of the license that you've procured, and it doesn't have to be a fancy E5 license or an E3 license. It could even be a business premium license, and that function or that feature hasn't been enabled. So you're paying for E3 or you're paying for business premium, and you're not using the updated, or let's say the improved functionality and features that come inside of your license. Now that is around security and compliance, which is very tied up to Entra. It can be bought modularly or enabled depending on what license you sit on. So customers come to us with a very, very basic request. They go, do we have multi-factor authentication? And you're like, yes, everyone's got multi-factor authentication. From a very basic license all the way to E5, MFA exists, but there are levels of MFA and there's complexity of MFA. And then when the customer starts realizing, wait a minute, MFA is just one function, but it's tied up to identities and risk profiles, and conditional access, then they start realizing, wow, okay, it's not just a feature that is enabled. It's a whole strategy that falls behind it. And that can get very, very daunting, because you purchase the license, and a lot of our customers are still under the impression that, hey, I bought an E5, hence I should have E5 security. And the reality is, no. You bought the E5, but you still need to take a look at what inside of that E5 license needs to be tailor-built or tailor-enabled inside of your tenant for you to use the latest or the features that are licensed for your security stance, for your automation, for your advanced analytics, for your reporting. And that can take a little bit of time and consultation. And this is why us at the Digital BU, we often are sitting with our customers looking at their licensing and going, okay, what is it that you've got? What is it that is enabled on and off when it comes to security and compliance, when it comes to Purview for data, when it comes to your Power Platform subscription or your advanced analytics that you might have in an E3 or an E5 license, and what isn't? Okay, let's roadmap that out for you. Let's assist you getting that into the environment so that you're not relying on, let's say, third-party licensing that overlaps, and that you're fully utilizing your Microsoft license. So the strategic question, right, shouldn't be, well, are we protected? How much, protection does our tenant have? The strategic question should be, are we using what we've paid for? And this is where Secure Score actually comes in. A lot of people think that Secure Score is just the enablement of the feature sets inside of the tenant. And actually, Secure Score can be very granular, give you a very detailed look as to what functions or what features have or have not been enabled inside of your environment. So here's an example. Had a very large customer come to us with an E5 security license for the whole tenant. And when we started the deep dive, let's say the granular findings on that tenant, we identified a secure score of 26%. And the customer was like, no, can't be. We've enabled multi-factor authentication. We've got conditional access policies in play. We've done A, B, and C. And we're like, whoa, slow down. It's not about enabling the technology, okay? The technology sometimes is just a little button that says on and off. But is the technology actually configured correctly? And this is another metric that Secure Score allows us to track. Not just are you using the functionality inside of the security feature set, but is that functionality configured correctly? So this metric is a very important metric. And if you go back to our security webinar, you'll notice that we did do quite a dissect on the Secure Score and what actually drives your Secure Score north and south. All of your platform functionality that is inside of your license has a very direct effect on your Secure Score. But what's more important to understand is the correct configuration of those controls. So if you go onto a tenant and you just switch everything on, it's going to be a very long day at the office because nothing is going to work. The platform has evolved to a point where very granular configurations that need to go through quite a test and an approval process to get it into production have to be undertaken. So when a customer comes to us with a secure score of 26 and after a year of fine-tuning and implementing and enabling the technology correctly, we get them to 90, that basically tells the customer, oh, well, okay, pretty much everything that we've paid for, we are using. Point A, return on investment. And point B, we've better aligned ourselves to the zero trust structures that Microsoft have for all of their platforms, whatever that platform is. A lot of people don't realize that even if they're on a lower SKU, like a business premium SKU, you can purchase the platform add-ons or functionality that you might need for a specific type of environment. So you can get advanced identity features by purchasing an Entra add-on, or you can get data features by purchasing a Purview add-on. And that can get daunting because the customers aren't really licensed experts and they need a trusted advisor to look at their environment, go through it with them, say, okay, this is where you are. This is what ticks the boxes. This is what's actually on and working, and this is what's on and not working. And we can show that to you with a metric that actually makes sense and is trackable. So what we often see is that inside of environment, there are a lot of features that are underutilized, and that could be for multiple reasons. Most of the time, customers have taken for granted that the platform has evolved, right? And they've had third-party applications doing what their license can actually do. So for customers that have E3, when you sit down and say, listen, what are you using for device and endpoint management? We see that you've got Intune, but you're not using it. Then they go, well, we've licensed a third party for it, which is, again, why would you want that overlap? You've got that functionality, you've got those feature sets, and it's a very, very solid platform. When it comes to security stack, there's a lot of security that overlaps. The Defender suite that is included in the more premium SKUs is very, very intense and very, very good. It's rated top right on Gartner, yet companies will go and choose a lesser vendor, a lesser quality vendor, and put it into the environment and not fully utilize their Defender suite, which is again included in the price. Okay, and it could be because they're loyal to the vendor, because they're tied into a contract, or because they just don't know how. The platform that evolves very, very quickly and is constantly needing attention is Entra. Okay, identity has been a issue in networking for many, many moons, and Microsoft have invested heavily in the Entra platform. And every single year there are new functionalities and feature sets, as well as add-on functionality that you can procure to get your identities to align to Zero Trust. So we see that customers have an E3 or an E5, but their Entra configurations are very, very primitive. They're not even touching the surface, yet they will go and they will spend money on a identity provider, not utilizing what they've already got in-house. The elephant in the room is always data. Okay? The Purview functionality inside of E3 often gets overlooked. Customers think that Purview is only E5. And the reality is that you've actually got quite a lot of functionality in E3 that you can enable inside of your tenant. So basic data labeling, basic sensitivity labels, they completely ignore that. And then they think, oh no, we cannot have a data governance and a compliance strategy because we need an E5 SKU and we don't have the money for E5, hence Microsoft is taken out of the picture completely. And it's not actually true. It's very important that we sit with our customers and we go, okay, what is it that you have? What is it that's enabled when it comes to data, when it comes to automation, when it comes to the Power App functionality inside of your tenant, all right, so that we can better guide you and get you to utilize those features that you're already paying for on a monthly or a yearly or a tri-yearly cycle. So for us, when we consult, most of the time it is limited awareness and adoption. Customers don't know that that function actually exists. Customers don't know that Microsoft plays in that specific space, or that license that they have has got a function that plays in that specific space. Customers are also very scared to enable the technology because they might not have the skills inside of their teams. There's no executive sponsorship, and they're not very, very well versed with, rolling out large deployments in a structured way, which is what service providers like ourselves do. Ideally, if you're on a premium SKU or an E3 SKU or an E5 SKU, and you've enabled it correctly, you benefit not just by limiting the amount of portals and third-party providers that you've got inside of the environment, you're limiting the amount of external correlation that needs to happen. Your secure posture becomes elevated. You have a lot less to look at from an administrative point of view. The operational efficiency is brought into play because customers are starting to see, well, we do have a certain amount of automation. We do have a certain amount of analytics that is in play for us. We can change the way that the workflows of our users work. We don't need all of these paper-based processes. We can easily automate on a E3 or an E5 SKU, leave approval processes and, credit card reimbursal processes, which are still traditionally done, old school with emails going up and down or on an antiquated ESS system. You're dropping your reduction in investment with third party because you're utilizing what you've actually paid for. And if there is a proper transformation and modernization strategy inside of a tenant for a customer, automatically users are going to start using the applications, the automated features, the workflows, as well as the integrated AI assistance and AI functionality that's brought into Copilot to just become a modern worker. Because when someone says modern work, it encompasses everything. It's security, it's AI, it's automation, as well as analytics. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you very much, Ax. So we now need to ask, what is the important CFO question to consider today? And we can answer it. The big one here is that are we measuring cost or value realization? Because they are two different sides of the same coin. But traditional technology metrics focused again on number of licenses that we've procured, our support costs, project delivery costs, infrastructure costs. That's a cost side to it. But the main focus today, the real question for CFOs are, what are we getting back for every rand that we spend? Are we improving, increasing revenues? Do we see productivity improvements, on a large cost base of our employees? Are we reducing risk in our organization? What about operational efficiencies, like Ax mentioned, through process automation, etc.? Do we have faster decision making? And can our businesses adapt quickly? Market changes, opportunities arise. How quickly can we move and take advantage of what is in front of us? So what are we measuring? Cost or value realization? For me, technology cost measures spend, technology value measures business impact. So when we think about total cost of ownership, when organizations evaluate technology, they often compare license cost. But license cost is only the visible portion of total cost. Hidden costs include a lot underneath: the complexity, integration work, user training, the security operations of making it all work, technical debt, downtime, duplicate platforms that you find, and vendor management. So it's very important that we do not just look at above the waterline, which is normally visible. We have to pay attention to the other elements that are actually adding a significant number to our costs every single month. So the insight for finance leaders really here is that, a lower price does not always mean a lower total cost of ownership. We can negotiate the best possible licensing deal, but complexity has a cost. Fragmentation has a cost. Poor adoption has a significant cost. Unmanaged cloud consumption, it also has a cost. So more than just licensing, we have to look at the full picture. There are a couple of value frameworks that is available, that's been used internationally. I'm going to share three with you. The first one is the Technology Business Management, TBM, which is a very strong international standard amongst measuring, business value. I would say about 80% of the Fortune 100 companies are using this framework. And again, it aligns technology investments with operations, looking at business outcomes. So, where's the money going? What are we getting back? Which services consume the most spend? Which business units receive the value? Which investments should we stop? So it's actively managing value over time. And this is the key thing. The time when we go live, we've activated and enabled a capability within your organization. The time of going live, there is zero value created for your organization. It's only once it's been utilized and going forward that you can start measuring full value. So TBM, the first one. Gartner has also got a value scorecard, specifically also for CIOs. Again, big focus on business outcomes, AI value realization, executive alignment, critically important. Technology-enabled growth. Where does it take our organization? And then strategic execution. Again, there was an old CIO dashboard you can see on the left, which focused on availability, the incidents, the uptime, the costs that we always report on. But the modern CIO dashboard focuses on revenue impact. Time to market. How quickly do we get our service and products out there? What is our customer experience? And are we, increasing loyalty? What is happening? Digital adoption, business productivity, and risk reduction. So it's a lot closer to what boards are asking for. So this is the Gartner Value Scorecard. And then we've got the Forrester Value Scorecard, again, focusing in, 4 perspectives that we have here. Again, the one is health, measuring stability in that environment, security, efficiency. So it's your security posture, platform stability. And then how good how effectively are we delivering technology, the projects, how do we automate our work, process improvements, what do we see, outcomes, what productivity gains do we see with our staff, with our workforce? What's the revenue impact, similar to the previous ones? Do we see a cost reduction by rationalizing certain technology areas and making sure that we don't duplicate? And again, agility. What does AI allow us to do? Speed of innovation, AI adoption, time to market. This traditional IT metrics fail to communicate real business value. And this is what makes these scorecards so valuable. We do not start at the technology side. We look at the business and what is needed to succeed and compete in a very strong and difficult economic environment. We do run technology value realization sessions with our customers, and you can book by just scanning the QR code. It's a practical way where we can sit with your organization, and we will review your license utilization, your technology potential overlap, your adoption maturity, AI readiness, and then are there very specific cost optimization opportunities. It's a working session to help leaders understand where value is being realized and where you may be leaking value. So please scan, and we look forward to having a conversation with you. Kajima has published a number of solutions, 20+ solutions on Microsoft Marketplace. And Marketplace, if you're not aware, is a simple, very transparent, fully compliant procurement platform from Microsoft. So it allows customers like yourselves to purchase pre-approved Microsoft certified solutions using your existing Microsoft Enterprise Agreement or committed cloud spend. So you are very happy, or you can very easily go to the Kajima Marketplace. There are a number of solutions, like I said, 20+ that have been published. You can go and experience those, watch the videos, get some more overviews. And if you're interested, you can reach out to us. Once we have had a discussion and you're ready to procure, you can even procure directly through Microsoft Marketplace, which definitely helps both procurement and your ability to use existing budgets. This brings us to the conclusion of our 6th webinar series. In 2 weeks' time, we're talking business continuity and resilience, also a very important consideration. And we are going to bring in some really important topics. If you know the threat landscape, if you understand what AI is bringing to the table when it comes to threat actors, business continuity and resilience is very important. So I'll encourage you to register for the next session. That is in 2 weeks' time, the same time on a Monday. And just scan the QR code, and you're most welcome to just book that session with us. And like always, we would really appreciate your feedback. Was today's session useful for you? You can please give us a rating. There's a poll that will come up. The one is, it was bad, 2 poor, 3 okay, 4 good, 5 very good. If you can maybe give us a rating, let's just get some feedback. It's important for us to also know that where can we improve with these sessions also going forward. Okay, so we're getting quite a good voter turnout there as well. Thank you very much. It's looking like we're sitting at about a 4.6 out of 5. So thanks so much, everyone. Really appreciate the feedback. And that takes us to the end of today's session. Thank you for taking the time, investing your time and energy with us. We look forward to having some conversations with you in transforming your business and really pursuing real business value. And like always, we hope to see you in 2 weeks' time with our final webinar session for the series. There will be monthly sessions as well. And if you've missed any of the webinars, like always, you can go to the Kajima website under news and go look for the webinars. All the recordings are there, so you can always refer back to any of the webinars if you've missed any. There will always be a monthly webinar series continuing afterwards. So again, thank you very much. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a successful week, and we'll see you soon.